Right, guys. So another talking head video today, and I have to kind of make this because I think people are missing a very clear strategy being employed right now, and that is everyone's focusing on when's the launch date of the 4080, because the 4090 is coming out, and obviously everyone's like, oh, the 4090 is the worst value because surely it's got to be the worst value, even though it's the only card that presents any real linear upgrade to the previous generation card in raster and has appreciable die size and seems like actual decent product they're selling you. But obviously everyone's like, oh no, don't buy that card because it's the 90 class, right? So everyone's like, when's the 4080 coming out? Because obviously NVIDIA said that 90s would come out first and stuff. So obviously everyone's going to be wondering when's the 4080 going to get launched? How much stock will there be? And then the big question is how fast will it actually be? Now, I would contend that neither of those questions really matter. The real question is, why does the 48 exist? Because obviously, I just uploaded a video speaking about how ridiculous the naming schemes are and how people are missing a very clear point, and that is that the 4080 12 gig is not a 4070. Okay, it's a 4060, and explaining just how it probably should have gone down if they were actually being fair. Thing is now, why did they do that? Why did they change their way of doing things? Think about it clearly now. Thing is, NVIDIA don't actually want you guys to buy 4080s. You guys realize that? NVIDIA are deploying a 200 IQ marketing strategy where it's oh, everyone's going to be looking at these cards oh, I'm too smart for the video. I'm not going to buy a 4080. I'm not stupid. I'm going to buy a 3090 Ti because it's $900 for a card with way more VRAM. It's much higher bus width, much higher memory bandwidth. It's going to perform better in 4K and 8K. If I ever get an 8K TV. And it's oh, it's cheaper and it's better value for money with raster. And I don't use DLSS. Some people are saying, oh, they don't use DLSS. And then that means DLSS 3 has no implication for them then. So it's and they don't use RTX. A lot of people don't use RTX. So it's oh, well, I don't use DLSS or RTX. So that means I'm buying a 3090 Ti because why should I buy a card that selling point is mainly ray tracing and AI frames when I don't use these features? So it's why would I buy that card, right? Obviously, because you shouldn't be buying something to have to be forced to use a feature you don't want to use, right? So, and to a degree, it makes sense. The 3090 Ti is the play. You do buy. If you do want to buy a card, you should buy cheap 3080s and cheap 3090 Ti's, for sure. You should buy cheap Ampere cards. That does make sense. However, NVIDIA are double duping us. They're it's they tricked us. They tricked us twice almost. It's oh, so NVIDIA think I'm stupid. I'm going to go buy a 4080 card. The 4090s is the only real upgrade and it's bad value. So I'm not going to get tricked to buy that. And I'm not going to buy the 4080 card because that's also horrible. It's terrible value. And it's I'm going to buy the old Ampere cards for sub 1000. That's the big brain play. It's yeah, but why? Because NVIDIA need to sell the stock. The AIBs EVGA were complaining. They need to move stock fast. There is millions of cards in warehouses. There's literally so much stock that they shouldn't even drop graphics cards. There's so much stock of their cards that they would have probably preferred just not to launch, but they have no choice because they've lost a bunch of market share. Their board are pissed off. AMD's launching new cards. They cannot sit on Ampere. So they had to launch. Now, do they actually want you guys to buy 40 series cards? They do if you want to buy a 90. If you're not buying a 90, they want you to be oh, well, the 4080s are terrible value. I'm going to buy a 90 Ti because that's less than $1,000 and it makes way more sense, which it does. And what happens is you end up buying their old stock, which they have to sell. So the problem is that they don't actually want to sell you 4080 cards. There's a reason why that whole situation is unfolding with the die sizes and the bus width and it seeming they're selling you a 4060 for $900. It's why? Why are they doing this? Because they're trying to force sales on their older cards. The sales on the older cards are more important. They do need to show their board members that they are launching. They have to show their board members, people buying expensive 4090s, they have to show their board members that they're selling 4090s and stuff. But in general, the new launches too will make you more excited about buying a 3090 Ti that's cheaper because you'll be oh, look, the 4080 isn't that fast. I'm going to buy a 3090 Ti now because it's safe. It's a much better value and I'm going to buy this. And all of a sudden, they're making tons of sales because now everyone's buying cards again. People that think they're smart are buying the Ampere cards and saving them from their supply, their oversupply, and then those that are buying 4090s are showing their board that on their new product they have a good launch, a successful launch. They're gonna be selling out in 4090s for sure. The 4080s they'll make like no stock of, so it means they'll artificially sell out. Like it was like dude, look at all the stock's gone. It's like, oh, you made like 20 cards, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? So they're gonna end up looking like they just sold out. Like, oh, all their cards are out of stock. All the 4090s are out of stock. All the 4080s are out of stock. And then all of a sudden they have an influx of sales on the Ampere cards, and it's like, wow, everything is working out perfectly. So that's kind of why this is happening. And the 4080 12 gig, do not kid yourself, it is a 4060. I'm telling you right now, it's a 4060. They haven't launched a 6 memory PHY 80 class card in like I don't even know how many years. When last was the last 6 memory PHY 70 class card? That's a better question. Like, this is a 4060. Like, 4060, man. They want you to buy Ampere. And I suggest you buy Ampere too, because you know what, those cards are terrible value. Do not go near the 4080s with a 10 meter long stick. They are an absolute waste of your money. They are useless. They are offering you value on two fronts that have little relevancy, which is AI frame generation and ray tracing. AI frame generation, that's going to look terrible. It's going to be a weird experience. It's not going to be for competitive gamers. Most people aren't going to want to run it. I don't want to run it. So DLSS 3's main selling point is not that relevant for most people. And RTX, let's be honest, most people don't use ray tracing. So, yeah, like, the truth is, the 80 class cards are terrible value. Buy Ampere as cheap as you can. Buy it used if you can. And the 4090, if you really want to upgrade, is the only real upgrade. It's the only real card that you can regard as a serious launch. Something where they weren't actually, like, spit in your face. And I even mentioned in that previous video, like, they did kind of, because, I mean, they've cut down how many SMs from the real die, or the main, like, the full die. So you still aren't getting what the 3090 was last gen. But the 4090 is a serious GPU. And it should have been 18,000 CUDA cores. It's got 16,000. It's still bloody fast. It's still a good card. And it's a reasonable upgrade. You know what? For the money, the fact that it's only gone up by like versus the 90 Ti, it is equal MSRP. 60% faster. So, I mean, yeah, it's like, it's not a terrible product. The 80s, though, nah, don't bother. Like, if you really want to buy a card at that price range, buy a 4090. If you want to buy a card that's good value, buy an Ampere card. That's it.